What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the studio. Hope you're all doing well, staying cool. We're getting a little cooler here in SoCal, but it's still pretty damn hot.
Yeah.
I'm joined today by a good friend of mine, fantastic bass player, Matthew Denis.
Thanks for having me, Charlie.
I'm glad you're here, brother. So what we're going to do, this is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And we're going to completely explore Matthew's rig, the setup he's been using. You work all over town. You're doing all sorts of different type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But you have kind of the same rig that you take with you to everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Pretty
absolutely.
much.
I mean, I originally put it together when I was doing a lot of fly dates with an artist. So it just made it a lot easier for me to, be able to have exactly the same sound that I have in LA at a gig in New York and not have to worry about what's actually
So
on the back line.
it's live and studio rig.
Yeah.
Nice. See, that's 2 for 1. That's a good thing right there. And there's no amp involved. And that's something when we were talking the other day or texting anyway, you said that recently you haven't really been using an amp on a lot of stuff.
No, yeah. Again, I was one of my more recent gigs. We were actually all ampless on stage. The only actual live sound coming off the stage was the drum kit.
Wow.
The guitarist was using a Kemper. I was running straight out of this Monique, which actually it does have a power section in it, but it's a tube preamp. So we were just taking a DI straight out of that to front of house.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, in a lot of ways that makes recording these days a lot easier, because even in the higher end multi-platinum studios, you might use an amp as your third or fourth tracked signal, but you're always taking at least one bass DI,
right?
Maybe two.
If you think about Motown, all those hit records, it was plugged straight in the console.
Yep.
So what we're gonna do is, I think we're gonna break down what he's got gear-wise, and then he's got a handful of tracks with some various styles that we're gonna go through some of the different settings he used, explain why he uses gear, or the gear that he has, what he uses it, and some of the, between the tracks, maybe how you change some of that up to what you have, right?
Sure.
So let's just start with, let's do a quick rundown of the gear. You want to let everybody know what you've got over here?
Yeah, sure. So when I'm recording, the two main signals that I usually take are from this Jewel Monique here, which is the tube preamp that I was mentioning earlier, and this A Design's Ready, which is also, it's funny you mentioned Motown. It's, from what I understand, it's designed based on the old B15 that
right.
they use for everything. So it's basically that preamp with no controls. It's just gain and that's it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll be recording two separate clean signals. They both are great sounding DIs. They just sound a little bit different. The Ready's a little bit more upper mid forward, a little bit more. It's not thinner, but it's a little more present in that way. And the Monique is a little bit thicker, more 3-dimensional, kind of like pushed tube amp kind of sounding. So that's I was doing a record at Howard Benson's studio, West Valley, not that long ago, and that's exactly what we did. We did clean from this, a clean from that, and the engineer Hatch was running, in addition to that, a super distorted DI channel, and he was also running an amp, but he was only using it for a sub track.
Oh, interesting.
So it was these two blended reasonably equally, and the other two kind of blended in underneath, and it just ended up being this massive knock buildings down kind of bass tone.
But for your deal is the Ready is the clean, always staying clean, and then anything, whether it's the Monique on its own or the Monique plus the pedal board, that's where your color and stuff is coming from, right?
Yeah. So yeah, and then as far as what's on the pedal board goes, into the front, if I'm live, I'm using a Shure wireless, but if I'm in the studio, I'm just plugging straight into this Origin Effects Cali 76, which is basically an 1176 FET compressor in a pedal. It's actually run by the kids of the original people who designed the 1176.
Nice.
Fairly certain. And going from there is a Fairfield Circuitry Barbershop, which is either used as a clean boost or a light, like dynamic kind of overdrive.
Right.
So it's not too crunchy, but it'll break up the more you dig into it.
Right. Got ya.
And then from there, going into this new pedal from Dark Glass Electronics, the Alpha Omega, which is the craziest distortion pedal I've ever used, and I almost don't even want to call it a distortion pedal just because it's so versatile. You can kind of do anything from really intense, heavy, saturated distortion or fuzz sounds all the way back to it just sounds like a push tube amp kind of rolling off the top end with some nice grit and fatness to it kind of thing, and anything in between there. And then from there, the first pedal that I ever got, which is pretty much an always-on part of my sound, regardless of what I'm doing, is the bass driver DI from Tech 21.
Oh, Sans Amp, you cannot go wrong.
Can't go wrong with a Sans Amp.
Sans Amp and bass go hand in hand.
So, and a quick note on that. Lots of people fear the dreaded mid-scoop of the Sans Amp. So if you roll the blend control all the way clockwise, as I think that the manual might actually suggest that you do, that definitely happens. And the reason that is because it was originally designed to not have an amp at all. You're just going straight into whatever recording interface.
Right.
So since I'm actually running this into the front of an amp and then even through a cabinet live, I don't really want that at all.
Right.
So the way that I'm usually using it is with the blend usually between like 9 or 10 o'clock. So it still adds a really cool fatness and harmonic richness to the sound, a little bit of crunch on the top end, but it's not scooping out the mids and the articulation to the tone either.
Right, okay, got you.
For those of you who've heard about
that's a good tip.
the bass driver and are concerned that you're going to lose all your mids, that's nonsense. Just figure out how the blend knob works.
In other words, just set it up right.
All the mids are, it's just, it's a really versatile pedal, so you can, the interactiveness of the controls can yield a lot of different sounds.
Cool.
And then the last thing in the chain, which I'm actually looking forward to comparing with one of the newer Tech 21 pedals, their Q-Strip, is it's an Omni Cab Sim from a new upstart company out of, I think it's Chile, called DSM Noisemaker, and it's literally what it says it is. It's a cabinet simulator. So usually when you're sending a DI signal to the front of house, it's a totally full range signal, so you're sending them everything from 35 hertz all the way up to 12K or whatever it is. And for a bass, you don't want nearly that wide of a breadth of signal.
You don't need a whole lot of 12K in your bass.
No, you don't even really want a lot of 6K or 5 or 4 even, depending on what kind of sound you're going for.
Yep.
So basically what that pedal is it's a set of variable high and low pass filters that allow you to basically remove the subby rumble from the signal that the front of house is getting, as well as like the stringy, noisy upper treble. Cool. And there's a couple other EQ controls that allow you to dial in a couple different things. There's a boost at 800 that goes from anywhere from flat to I think 10 dB. A cut at 400, same thing, anywhere from flat to -10. But just how I'm using it usually is just high pass filter at around 60.
Yeah.
And depending on the track, I'll do the low pass at around 5K to even 3 if I'm looking for something a little bit darker and more vintage sounding.
Got you.
Because that's usually, if you're miking a cab, that's what that's the sound you're getting.
That's what you're doing.
Not getting any 5K out of the mic speaker cone. That's not
exactly. Well, let's hear some stuff real quick. Let's just so everybody can get an idea of the sound of the two different rigs. You want to play a little?
Yeah.
No track. Which bass you starting with? This guy?
Yeah, I'll start with.
Let's hear this, and then we'll walk through the basses because you got some crazy ass.
Yeah, the frets are all crooked.
I know. I think that might have got damaged in shipping.
I know. those Canadians can't seem to put together basses properly.
Okay, so let's hear the Red Eye first.
Okay.
If you guys can hear that, that's Oscar.
That's a dog kicking his face.
You want to play a little bit? Ready. Now, let's go to the Monique.
Cool. So for the Monique channel, I've still got some of the stuff in the pedal board on. You want me to take that off?
Turn the pedal board off first. So this is just going to be the Monique by itself. ready is considerably brighter.
It is.
And pushed, yeah.
Yeah, so the only difference, it seemed like the way that we've got it set up now, the jewel was a little bit quieter. That's the jewel there?
Yeah, that's the Monique, yep.
So it's a little louder now.
That's full and crunchy. Wow, that sounds really good.
So the cool thing about the Monique is it's definitely a little more versatile than the Ready, just because it gives you a 3-band Baxandall EQ on the front, and then it also has some push-pull pots that allow you to change how the tube circuitry is actually being driven.
Right.
So the way that my usually go-to way that I have it set up, which is what you're listening to right now, is to have the line level control pulled out. And what that does is send a significant boost to the last tube in the preamp chain, which I think is a 12 AU7 tube, and I think it's a 12 dB gain boost.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
So that crunchiness that you're hearing is that tube being pushed super hard and getting saturated. So then if I put that back in and then pull out the sensitivity knob, that's actually driving the first tube in the preamp chain, which is a 12AX7 tube.
Oh, cool.
So it's not going to be quite as fat or saturated, but it's still a little brighter. So this will probably be actually closer to the Ready sound. Yeah.
It is more in that ballpark, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. That's really, just those two things actually make that kind of versatile. You can get that fat kind of thing really easy with basically just the pull or push of a knob.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really without messing with the EQ at all. I've got everything a little bit boosted. But there's really, the cool thing about the Baxandall EQ too is the EQ points that they've chosen makes it pretty much impossible to get just a terrible sound out of it. I feel like there's a lot of gear where you're not supposed to use it through the full range of the knob, whether it's a gain knob or a master knob or an EQ. If you turn it all the way up or all the way down, it's not gonna sound musical anymore. But if you do that with this, even if you turn the bass all the way up, it gets super fat, but it's not muddy or clippy or phasey or any of the weird stuff that happens.
That reminds me of my Trident EQs. I can push the bottom 15 dB and it doesn't distort, or it just makes it huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is cool. Okay, so now the pedal board is running along with the Monique, right?
Correct.
So let's hear that.
Okay.
We're still on there.
So still on the Monique. So I'll just start flipping things on down the line of the board. So this is with the Cali on now.
Got that bite.
And off.
Got just a little bit of that bite when you turn it on. It just kind of
just a little bit of extra harmonic color on the note, a little bit more attack, a little bit more snap.
Yeah, it sounds really good. All right, what's next in line?
So next in line is going to be the Sam's amp. And again with that off.
Gotta have that on.
So and again, even that's still with the blend control on that almost all the way off. It's at 9 o'clock, so it turns full off at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that's almost not on at all, but it's still
it makes a noticeable difference though.
Still a noticeable difference. And all of this is being played. We were talking about the crooked frets earlier. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a Dingwall bass. They're a company out of Canada, and if you've noticed by now, the frets are all crooked. They weren't installed incorrectly. They meant to make it like this, and the idea is that it's a multi-scale instrument. So each of the strings has its own scale length, and the idea is that it makes all of the string tensions pretty much exactly the same, just like a grand piano or a harp, an instrument like that. So basically, it's going to give you a lot more clarity on the lower strings, especially if you're tuning down, but even in standard tuning, it makes a noticeable difference. Especially the farther you go up the neck, you're not going to get any of those wolf tones or the muddiness that usually happens when you start getting close to the 12th fret on the low strings. And then on the higher strings, they're a lot more pliable. So they're easier to bend if you're into that kind of thing, and it also makes them a little bit fatter sounding. So just the overall tonality of the instrument's more even than a traditional instrument, just because the lower strings are tighter and the thinner strings are a little bit looser, making them all about the same.
Right. Makes total sense when you think about it.
It really does.
And honestly, it kind of looks cool with the frets that way. It makes you look faster.
Yeah. It does lead to some interesting conversations after pretty much every gig.
Oh, I bet it does.
What the hell is going on with that bass, man?
Yeah, it's not that, oh man, you're an awesome bass player.
No,
what's wrong with the frets on your bass?
No one cares about me. It's always about the gear. And the other cool thing about the Dingwall basses is they do this really cool 3 pickup system where it basically gives you a P bass, a jazz bass, and a Music Man all in one bass.
Oh, cool.
So I've been using the P bass sound, but just with this 4-way rotary, you can flip through those. So I'll just do that real quick so you guys can hear how different of a sound you can get. Just so here's the P bass again. Now moving on to a jazz bass. And then moving on to Music Man.
Oh, wow.
And then in addition to those 3 pickups, they also have series and parallel switches for each of the individual pickups. So you can have just going back through again, you can have a P bass in series, which is what you're hearing before, a little bit more mid forward, a little louder, fatter sounding.
Ooh, that sounds
okay. Or flip it to parallel, you're going to get a little bit more of a mid scoop, which is technically just the bass and the treble getting extended, and a little less output. And again, going through, you can do the same thing with the jazz. Both in parallel.
Man, that is
just the neck in series. And then the same with the Music Man, both in series, super thick and fat.
Ooh, dark.
Yep, flipping both to parallel, totally different vibe.
So in other words, pretty much what you've done with the rig is you've got as much as you can out of a very compact setup that's you can fly with, going to gigs, it's easy, you go to a session, you never have to worry about being the guy that didn't bring the right thing for the
that's the idea. I mean, I'll usually bring more than one bass to a session just in case.
Which he does have a couple more over here.
But yeah, you basically have 3 basses in one bass and then a bunch of different. For me, it's mostly drive options because people aren't usually asking me for can you put delay on your bass track when you're recording it. Generally, when you're recording bass, if you want to add delay or spatial effects, it's a lot easier to do that in the box. Especially because you don't know how the compression is going to interact with the actual effect. You might record something that sounds nice, and then once you compress it to sit in the mix, all of a sudden it's just way too wet and just cavernous sounding. And you can't fix it now because you printed that.
And I'm sure a lot of engineers, I know if you walked in here with this rig, when we set up in here, it took you 10 minutes, and the tone is there. But not just a tone, it's like 10 tones are there. here's the clean, bright, here's the fat, and now we start flipping through this. All of a sudden, it's like decisions can be made really quickly in the middle of a session.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to audition a bunch of bass sounds and not actually have to switch basses.
Right.
You just flip a knob.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea you could do that with that bass.
Yeah.
That is
fun,
pretty
right?
bitchin', yeah.
So yeah, Dingwall basses out of Canada. Check them out.
Let's get some tunes.
Sounds good.
Let's do some tracking. So, here's what we have. He's brought with him a handful of different style. We have kind of a modern rock kind of track. There's a funk and a Motown track. I think we're going to start with the Hooks and Knives, which I don't know how we do it. It's kind of a rock, kind of indie, kind of
indie folk rocky. It's sort of in the vein of like Royal Blood maybe, but not quite that heavy.
Right. Yeah, that'd be close.
Something like that. But yeah, the band's called Crooked Barrel of Snakes. It's actually a track off their upcoming LP, which should be out in the next month or two, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's what we're going to start with, I think. So do you kind of know the tone you were using when you were some of it?
Yeah.
Even better. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull both of these guys on. And it was the tone more of coming through the Monique, or is the Red Eye a backup? Now before we do this, real quick.
Yeah.
The point of having the Ready, mainly, if I understood you correctly when we were setting up, is it's kind of although it is a tone in and of itself, it's more of the backup in a way most of the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't say most of the time, but it's always a good idea to take a clean DI signal, kind of honestly regardless of what instrument you're recording.
Mm-hmm.
The same is true of guitars, really.
Right. Yeah, we do a lot of tracking a line just as a backup.
Yeah, even if you're sure that that's exactly the sound you're going to use, it's even just useful for going through and editing later. Because if you're using a super high gain sound for either bass or guitar, the transients kind of get smeared when you're actually looking at the waveform.
Oh, that's a good point.
The transients are totally clear in that clean track. So when you're going through and editing, there's no guesswork. There's no, it's there.
Right. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say it's about half and half.
So was this track mainly the Monique or the pedal board?
Yeah,
or?
this track is mainly the Monique and the pedal board.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Then that's what I'm going to pull up and monitor. So we'll get pretty much the sound.
Cool.
Hearts beating when heads don't work. You're the king of the night. Senses fail in frightening bursts. Keep your hooks and your knives.
It's my turn to show you how to go live. And it's my turn to dance with the same stride. And it's your turn to make my body come alive. And it's my turn.
That is a great bass tone
Thanks, man.
for that. Now, what do you have? What's the chain right now for that sound?
So the chain is the P Basin series.
Okay.
Here. And then I'm hitting the Cali 76, but I'm sure you can see from my settings it's pretty light. I've got the input super low, so I'm only getting. I wasn't looking at it. It's more of a feel thing, but if I'm digging in really hard, maybe 10 dB of gain reduction on the front, but that's really just the initial note attack. And then running into the Sans amp, the dark glass, which we didn't mention before. Sorry, guys. Sorry. The dark glass vintage ultra, which right now it has a distortion channel, but I'm only using it for a clean EQ and a boost.
Got it.
And then into the Omnicab Sim, which is again just that low pass and high pass.
The thing is, it sounds like an amp. It's got that bite that you usually don't get from the DI kind of thing.
Totally.
It's fat, It's got all the mid-range you need to cut through. It's got a little that high that just kind of comes out, but it sounds like we're moving air.
Yeah. I mean, my idea always has been, honestly, whether it's playing live or in the studio, to just make the engineer's job as easy as possible. There's a lot of people who, especially live...
This is how you hire this guy.
Especially live, there's some people who are big proponents of, no, I'm only going to send the front of house guy a clean DI and nothing else. And that can work if that's the engineer's preferred way of working, because he's going to know how to take that signal and make it into what he needs. But if you already know how to send him a signal that sounds great,
your sound, yeah.
And not only your sound, but it's not going to get in the way of anything else. The high and the low pass takes care of any of the rumble that he's gonna do that to your channel if you haven't done it for him already.
Right.
He's gonna low pass your channel somewhere if you haven't done it for him already. Worst case scenario, he's not going to low pass it low enough, so you're still going to get some ganky, trebly stuff in the front of house that you didn't want there.
So it also, besides making his job easy, it lets you still, for the most part, have your sound out front.
Exactly, especially if you're running an in-ears kind of gig. It allows you to inform your performance so much more.
Right.
If your bass sounds like what it's supposed to sound like,
yep.
what it sounds like in your head, it actually sounds like in your head.
Right, which is cool. Okay, so now, same rig. We're going to go to, let's go as far away as we can. Let's go Motown.
Let's go Motown.
Yeah,
okay.
so he's got a Motown track here.
So yeah, this is a Spectre Coda. Basically got a P-Bass pickup and a Music Man pickup in it, both from Nordstrand Audio. Make great pickups, and they were actually installed by one of the main techs over there, Murillo Mina. He has a shop out here in Redlands called Mo Shop. Highly recommend anyone who needs bass work or even guitar work of any kind done, go see him. Because when this was sent to me originally, it was just a P-Bass. So he actually routed the body and the pickguard to install the
wow,
Music Man
cool
pickup in it. And then for dialing in a tone, we'll probably be going primarily Monique again here.
Okay.
And let's actually play with the Alpha Omega. See if we can't dial in some even darker fatterness.
Yep. Yeah, now we're in a whole different vibe.
Less gain. Okay. And then I'll flip on Alpha Omega here. So to do this kind of amp synth thing with the Alpha Omega, it's got a ton of gain on tap, so you have to run the blend super low, like 9 o'clock or earlier. Probably cut some treble.
It's great. You guys can see what he's doing.
Off here.
Now you had mentioned to me earlier too that you're not live switching most of the time. It's like, okay, you get the tone set. You do that if you need a different sound or tweak something, you stop, you either punch, do another take.
Pretty much. And usually the way that I like to set my pedal board up is kind of unity gain everything. So if you need to switch something off in between songs or whatever, you're not sending the front of house a dramatically different signal level when that happens.
Right.
But usually, for the most part, I'm a set it and forget it kind of guy at a gig. I'll use either a different technique or a hand placement to get a different timbre out of the instrument.
Same in the studio?
You know, honestly, usually, if you need something really dramatically different in the studio, I definitely won't be kicking pedals on and off while I'm tracking. I'll just punch that section.
Right. Got it.
All right, so this is with the Alpha Omega on now. That's off.
Yeah, that's
should
cool.
work.
Yeah. All right, you want to check this track?
Yeah.
All right, so now we got some Motown vibes going. You ready? Here we go. That is cool because it has that dark really dark thing like Motown always had.
Right.
But it's still got that full low mid to it, which was always cool. Made those basses like so punchy.
Yep. So yeah. That's
And it's the same rig.
Yeah.
So this is a versatile rig, man. All right, now so another one at you. Let's stay groovy, but let's go funky because I know it's a different setup, right?
Oh yeah, so that funk track, I kind of had more of like a Dave Matthews kind of thing in mind.
I'm calling it audible.
Yeah, let's see here.
And then we're gonna finish up with the heavy track.
Put that out for me.
So we're same bass.
Yeah, same bass. So I've just flipped over to the Music Man pickup here.
A little more clarity.
Yeah, a little
We've
more clarity.
got that mid-range
definitely
coming
more
through.
mid-range.
Ooh, it's a nice tight low end though.
Yeah,
I mean, even in the headphones, I'm hearing it well.
yeah. So I just rolled the low pass filter up a little bit higher. So you're just getting a little bit more top.
All right, let's hear some funk. Ready?
Yep.
Damn. I think I know that song.
Yeah. Awesome bass line.
And it really was the only switch was the change of the pickup.
Yeah, so I turned the Alpha Omega off just because I didn't want that super dark tube amp sim kind
Right.
of thing happening. Rolled the low pass filter up a little bit higher, so it's closer to like, probably 5K, I guess.
But we're basically it's a flip of a switch. It's a quick roll.
And rolled to the Music Man pickup.
And this is, I mean, there's a couple takeaways that I've got from this. Honestly, as an engineer coming in, especially if you have more than one track you've got to do, or even if you just really want to make sure you got your tone perfect, this is all happening quickly. The other thing is, he knows his gear. Just like I've always said with all microphones and everything else, you got to get to know what you have. He knows this rig really, really well and can make these changes like this. I'm sure if I started calling things out, oh, it's too bright or too dark or needs more push, oh, okay, cool. I go to, I do this. I turn this on, turn this off.
The fun thing about, essentially, if you're kind of looking at it this way, I have, even if I'm just going into the Monique here, I have just between the board and the Monique, 3 different preamp EQs to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all centered slightly differently. They all do slightly different things. So even if you have a really specific request, like I need more 400 or whatever, I can just do that here.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about carving it out or,
Right.
or boosting it later.
And as a working musician, having such a versatile rig has got to make you, it's got to really help with getting gigs and keeping gigs. I mean, it comes down to you, obviously, but I mean, knowing that you have this kind of versatile rig that can happen really quickly has got to just make so many front of house guys and engineers happy.
Yeah, it really does, and it's funny, back when I was going to music school, I was definitely more, I'd say even obsessed with the technical side of playing, being able to play all of the fanciest, choppiest stuff that you possibly could, all of the slapping and tapping things. And the more that I played, the more I got focused on the actual tones that I was getting. And I realized it was actually one of my instructors, J.K. Klukens, who's...
I know J.K.
You remember J.K.? So he had all that chop stuff. All of it. And we were going over it one day, and he said, we can keep working on this, but if I were you, I'd learn songs. Because knowing how to instantly go into... the Motown vibe or the funk vibe or the rock vibe or whatever, that's what people want to hear. Just making it sound right. They don't care about all the fancy crap that you can do. No one cares. You're never gonna get. Sorry, guys. No one's ever gonna, unless you have a YouTube channel and that's how you're making all your money. No one cares.
And that's coming from J.K., who is a monster player.
Monster player.
But he's right. No one cares.
Yeah.
It's, at least not the people hiring you to do the music.
No, yeah, they want the bass to sound like
Yeah.
the record or to sound like a record, depending
Whatever
on
that
where
is.
you are in the stage.
Right.
Either you're replicating the record or you're creating it, but still, yeah, make it sound right. That's all they really care about.
So let's do one more track.
Cool.
We'll finish this off with the kind of modern rock. This is definitely a modern rock, kind of modern hard rock, maybe, in that kind of vibe.
I would say it's even a metal band, but this isn't a particularly metal track.
Right, okay, yeah.
So again, this is another Dingwall bass, same 3 pickup configuration. So I'm going to be using the Music Man with both pickups in series. And this bass also has a Dark Glass Electronics tone capsule preamp in it. So it's just, what you'll see when we were using it, it's really big and modern. And it's like a Music Man. If the Music Man bass worshipped a god, it would be this bass.
Okay, all right. That is... He's calling a Music Man out now. Let's see how it goes.
Hey, Music Man basses are great basses. This is just a better one.
Fair enough. All right,
All right.
staying on the Monique mainly.
Yeah, staying
Okay.
on the Monique mainly, and let's dial in a bunch of this Alpha Omega here. So I'm flipping both the I think they're called the growl and the bite switches up, which drives the gain into specific frequencies in the low and upper mid range. I think it's 100 and maybe 3K.
Yeah.
So I can switch those on and off if you want to hear the difference, but the tube amp sim thing that we were doing before is with both the switches off. And
Okay.
now this really modern high gain thing is with both the switches on.
Cool. All right, let's hear that.
But we're gonna get even
Bite.
more dirt than that.
Yeah, that's... We're in a whole...
Oh yeah.
How much
and
compression's going on right
good amount. I can turn it off though. It's not gonna sound that much different.
Turn it back on. It does kind of just... It contains a little bit, pulls it...
A little bit. Yeah, so this bass is more higher output than the other ones. So when I'm digging really hard, looks like the meter's hitting like 15. But no.
All right, you want to do it?
Sure.
All right, finishing big. Here we go.
Staring down the barrel of a shotgun. Appear so quickly, leave as swiftly as you can. Sometimes I wish I had the measure of a wise man, but I set the mood, I played the tune, and bury all the bones within. It sure is something when we all catch fire. Bodies burning like the sunrise. Stay with me, I'll show you paradise. It feels so right. Give me that peace of mind. I'll give you everything just so it feels so good that I can die. It'll be alright.
Dude, that is a cool... That is a cool tone.
Pretty cool,
'Cause
right?
even when it started to get really big, I could still feel, even in the headphones, I could still feel that low end sitting just right underneath there and not changing.
Yep.
That's badass.
Pretty cool.
That's badass.
So yeah, definitely check out if you're into high gain sounds. The new Dark Glass Alpha Omega is, for my money, the best bass distortion pedal that's ever.
I
been
gotta
made.
get one of those in here now.
I'll have you call Doug. He'll hook you guys
Excellent.
up. Yeah.
And I'll get some, guys, when I get the repost up, I'll get some links to some of this because that Monique is really cool and some of these pedals are just badass. That whether you're a bass player or you're out there, you've got a studio or your own, it's worth having some of these things, you know, for the guy that doesn't come in as prepared as Matthew, you know, just having a couple good pedals and things that can alter your tone quickly to get what you need is really handy. It can save you a ton of time later when you're mixing and sitting there going, okay, now what do I need to do for bass? And you start running through plugins and stuff, and 6 days later you're like, oh, I still can't get a bass tone. Screw that. Do it right at the top, you know. Dude, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Now, where can we find you online?
I'm really easy to find. Basically, just look up Matthew the Bass Player pretty much anywhere. YouTube.com/Matthew the Bass Player, MatthewTheBassPlayer.com, Facebook.com/Matthew the Bass Player.
Easy.
That's me.
Go check him out. There's a good chance he might be in one of your cities sometime soon because you're always working.
It's entirely possible. Yeah, let me just list off some people here. Give some shout outs. Zoviet, a band that I've been playing a lot with, is going to be doing a bunch of shows in Mexico soon. So look forward to that.
Great rock band.
All our fans out there, yeah, it's kind of like Foo Fighters, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of vibe. Doing some other great new rock projects. There's a new project on Another Century Media called Never Fade. That's awesome. A great like alternative prog rock kind of band called Vi Jester. That's really great. I've been playing with a bunch of really talented country artists lately. That's been a ton of fun. Kurt Chambers, Golden West, Carmel Helene, all awesome artists and fantastic people, and doing a bunch of work at one of my favorite studios aside from here, Total Access down in Redondo Beach. So
Oh, that's a cool place.
it is a cool spot,
Yep.
yeah, where they did a bunch of seminal records there, the original Sublime stuff, Pennywise, if you remember Bro Hymn.
Yep.
So yeah, there's actually a photo up on the wall of 30 dudes all with their pants down saying whoa. Yeah. That's that studio.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks again. You guys check it out. And at the very least, I hope the thing that really take away with this is, one, know your gear. He knows this well. We made changes between 4 or 5 different styles, pretty much like that. All with the same rig. Really versatile rig. And then go play your ass off. That's the next thing. Because this rig is only as good as the person like holding the bass. And he's a badass bass player. Anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you in a couple weeks.